All right, guys, welcome into another episode of AL.com Recruiting. I'm your host, Simone Eli, alongside Ben Thomas with AL.com, covers all things high school sports. Patrick Greenfield behind the scenes with his brand new haircut. He's excited to get things going here, producing the show, pulling up all the great graphics that we're going to have for you guys today. And big topic, I guess we're talking today, Ben, is Omari Kelly, the wide receiver over at Hewitt-Trussville, expected to make his decision tomorrow. What are you hearing on this?
Yeah, he's probably going to do it around 5, maybe 6 o'clock in the evening, I guess, after practice. You know, good time right before week 1. They open against Pinson Valley on Friday. I mean, I think, crazily, I think Auburn has come in and maybe in the lead for him. I mean, they weren't really in it to begin with, but they've really turned up the heat on him, and I think they may be the favorite right now. I mean, he's a lot of teams have been in contact with him. He told me he's a member of our A-list. I think he was number 15, and he told me at that time that you can see his stats there that Patrick's putting up for us, that he was trying to kind of decipher what offers were committable. You know, that can be a very frustrating process for recruits trying to decipher what's committable and what's not committable. It's just a bad term. But he's had a lot of interest from most of the SEC programs. A lot of people list him as an athlete. Simone, he could be a wide receiver, could be a defensive back, but Josh Floyd, in my talks with him, the head coach at Hewitt-Trussville, talked about how smooth Omari was on the field. So if Auburn gets him, and it looks like they might, this will be a huge addition to Brian Harson's class, which has really kind of picked up steam. Simone, you know, it started off very slow. They had like 3 commitments forever, and I think they're up to 9 now. If Omari commits to them, it would be 10, I believe. For this point. So kind of picking up some steam if they can get this one, and I think it would be a good commit for them.
You got to imagine one thing that is helping Auburn when it comes to recruiting is actually getting to be inside and people actually meeting Brian Harson, getting to know him. That's got to be a big thing for Auburn's recruiting, is actually getting to see him face to face and getting to know him.
Oh, I think definitely it is. And then as the season opens, you know, getting these kids on campus for games, and especially if you're winning games. I mean, you know, Auburn had an issue with that at some points last year, but if they can get off to a good start, and their schedule is built where they should be able to get off to a good start in August and September, and that'll help with recruiting as well. And they got a chance to, you know, if Omari Kelly commits, they already have Caden Story, who's on our A-list of top senior prospects. They'd have 2 commitments on that A-list and seem to have the ball rolling a little bit now.
Yeah. Patrick, if you will, pull up the A-list top 10 that we were looking at. And a lot of these guys, Ben, we say it every single week, a lot of these guys hadn't made a decision when we kind of started this show at least a couple months ago, and we see three Alabamas on there. A lot of just Power 5 schools where some of the best guys in the state have already made their decisions now.
Yeah, so just a brief explanation about the A-list. This is our top 15 senior recruits we do every year. And we also reevaluate this, Simone, later in the year. So guys can move up, guys can move down on this list depending on what they do in their senior seasons. But you see 3 Alabama guys, they're in the top 10. The top 2 guys, to no one's surprise, I mean, pretty much everybody has Jeremiah Alexander, the Thompson edge rusher, as their number 1 guy. And then right behind him, Emmanuel Henderson, the running back from Geneva County, both solid Alabama commitments. Robert Woodyard from Williamson, he's been an Alabama commitment probably longer than anybody. I think he committed last June, but there may still be some wavering there. He still says he's firm to Alabama, but
really,
I just hear some things going on there, so it'll be interesting to follow him through the season. By the way, his season starts Thursday night against LaFleur here in Mobile. And just outside the top 10, just while we're on Alabama, Kobe Prentice is on the list as well. Kobe was number 12, I believe, on our list of recruits. So interesting there. But so the A-list, there's 15 of them, 5 of them uncommitted, Simone. So still some work to do.
Yeah, and Justice Finkley, we're talking Hewitt-Trussville here, so I just want to touch on him. Anything new on that, when he wants to make a decision? Obviously, the season starts Friday. A lot of guys, I think, want to maybe get on a campus and see a game in real life and color. But Justice Finkley, I'm surprised. Are you surprised that, you know, we're kind of entering almost September now and a decision really hasn't been made there?
Well, he did narrow it to 3, as we talked about, Simone. Alabama, I believe Colorado and Texas are his top 3. real studious guy. The guy wants to be a surgeon after football.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I think he's got his 3, and he's just going to wait and see what's the best decision for him. I wonder now if we're going to get into, now that the high school season starts this week, the college season starts in 2 weeks. I think we may get into a period where we don't see as many commitments as we have. It's June.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys have already committed. So I have not seen anything lately on when Justice might commit. It may be, he goes on a visit and feels at one of these places and makes kind of a snap decision. But a good guy and a big game for him coming up on Friday night. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. The other guys in our top 10 there, I guess the only other 2 not committed, Eston Harris, the Auburn High offensive lineman who transferred from Beauregard.
Mm-hmm.
Hadn't seen a lot of movement with him right now. He's getting a lot of offers with Auburn High School. And then at the bottom there, Curtis Peary, number 10.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting guy here. This is the guy who transferred just recently from Park Crossing to Pike Road. We will see him in Mobile on Friday night. They play McGill Tulane, his first game with Pike Road. He's listed a top 10, Simone.
Yeah.
We don't want to go over it for the rest of the show, but Auburn and Alabama are both included in that top 10. And so probably one of the top uncommitted prospects still left in our state. Big defensive lineman, edge rusher type guy.
For sure. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how recruiting takes shape. You mentioned just a minute ago, Ben, now that the high school season is actually kicking off, week 0 is Friday, just a couple days away. Obviously, some games are being played tomorrow. We got a big one down here in Spanish Fort, over at Spanish Fort. In my mind, guys either are going to make a decision before the season starts, which we've seen a lot of that, or at this point, they're going to wait. They're going to take their visits, and once the early signing period sneaks up, which it always does, decisions are going to be made, especially, I know these top-tier guys sometimes get a little bit more time, but the way things are looking right now with the transfer portal and coaches kind of hanging on to spots for the transfer portal specifically to get a guy who has college experience, in my mind, these high school guys want to make a decision and want to make it quick.
There's no doubt. Good point, Simone. I mean, what we've seen since the early signing period came to be in December, and I didn't really get a feel it's going to be like this, but I mean, it's basically that all the top guys, for the most part, sign in December.
Yep.
A few holdouts, if you're a 4 or 5 star guy, you can hold out and decide. But for the most part, 80, 90% of these big time classes at Alabama and Auburn and all these other places are done. Now, there will be – the problem is if you decide to wait until February, a lot of the spots that are open, a lot of colleges are holding those for transfer portal kids. So, high school seniors may not get those spots like they used to get. So,
sure.
I mean, that's why, like I said, 10 of our 15 guys here on our A-list are already committed, going to be 11. As of Thursday night with Omari Kelly, we'll only have 4 spots left. And that's because, if you know where you want to go, get in there and get that spot because it might not be there if you wait too long.
Yeah, we're also seeing a lot of guys get on campus earlier. That was obviously a big decision in Shamar James' situation, leaving Faith Academy and going to Florida. So he can hopefully, I guess, get on Florida's campus sooner than later. But it's very interesting to see how many factors are now playing a role in college in recruiting for high school student athletes. At one point, it really was, where do you want to play? Okay, what conference do you want to play in? And now it's, how much money are you going to make in the NIL? Are you going to forego your entire senior season? We've seen that. Can I get there earlier? Do I have a coach there? Just so many different factors now are playing a role in high school student athletes' decision making. You got to imagine it's not a really super easy thing to try to decide as a 16, 17, 18-year-old young man.
Now, they got more pressure on them now than they have ever had, I think, as far as this decision goes. Interesting that you said that. I talked to Emmanuel Henderson, the Geneva County running back, over the weekend for our story. He was number 2 on our A-list, and he said he's going to stay his full year, Simone, at Geneva County. He's going to play basketball. He actually had a couple of SEC basketball offers last year as well. So he's going to stay and play basketball and graduate with his classmates at Geneva County, which is kind of against the grain these days. And also check out that story on AL.com because Jim Bob Striplin, who we've had on the show, said some interesting things, including he basically said, look, some other high schools tried to come after this guy and recruit him for his senior year, and Emmanuel stayed at Geneva County, wanted to stay with his teammates. And we've seen and we've talked about how this has kind of been the off season of high-profile transfers
Yes.
right or wrong, depending on what you want to do. But for a guy like Emmanuel Henderson, who's at, Hartford's a very small town. I don't know if you've ever been there, but he's obviously the big man in town, the big man on campus. And for him to stay there, and play with his friends for a senior year, you got to respect that.
Yeah, I certainly do respect that, especially seeing that he's going to stay there for the remainder of the entire year and not leave early. I mean, again, everyone has their decisions, and it's for them to decide. But speaking of high-profile guys leaving to go to different schools, we're seeing that in some of our top games here this week. And I want to take a look quickly first at the Thompson versus Oxford game, Ben. We know these are two hard-hitting programs. Obviously, Thompson, the two-time defending state champs, in that crazy game last year. But one guy that stands out here is Traquan Fagans, who just happened to be at Oxford for the last 3 seasons with his brothers, and now he is at Thompson playing them.
All right. You got to figure there's going to be a lot of emotion in this game. And we're going to try and do this each week, Simone. Spotlight, maybe as many 3 games with top prospects involved. This one will be at Oxford on Friday night. A lot of emotion involved. And, of course, we could put Thompson on this list every week because of all the prospects they have. Oxford has a good prospect as well, as you can see there, McGill Mitchell, the athlete committed to Vanderbilt. So not everybody – I think Oxford lost 13 transfers, but not everybody left. Still some talent there at Oxford. And
13 transfers?
I think that's the number I've heard recently. Yeah, 13. Not just – now, they didn't all go to Thompson. There's some at Gulf Shores. There's some at Auburn High School. And one of them was Keith Estridge's son, Camden. So I don't know that you really count that. But but still talent there at Oxford. And Sam Adams is a good coach. I think he's going to do a good job there. But, we could list probably a lot more players than this for Thompson. But you mentioned Traquan Fagans and his brothers. I mean, there's a family of them. They all left Oxford. Traquan right now is the man in the spotlight because he's the senior and just committed to Miami. We talked about our A-list number 1, Jeremiah Alexander. The guy we haven't talked about this week, Connor Harrell, the North Carolina quarterback commit. He was probably the Simone today on AL.com. We have 10 Mr. Football candidates. I'd say this guy is the leading candidate right now. Connor Harrell may have won it last year had he not got hurt in the championship game. And JaQuincy Kool-Aid McKinstry won it. So a lot to watch in this game. Obviously, Peter Woods and Tony Mitchell are juniors, top juniors in the nation who haven't committed yet. So this will be, if you're looking for a good game with a lot of recruits, this would be a good one to check out.
I wouldn't mind having Mark Freeman's job, I feel like.
He's got some talent over there, Simone.
No doubt. Connor Harrell, fantastic. I think he might have showed his most value. And I think you understood his value, I guess I should say, word it like that, when he wasn't on the field in that state title game against Auburn. Because unfortunately for the Warriors, they had a very hard time moving the ball. Obviously came out with the win, which was miraculous in its own right. But Connor Harrell, no doubt, a fantastic student athlete. I've loved interviewing him every single time I've talked to him, but also a great player on the field. So really looking forward to seeing what he can do in his senior season, having already decided where he's going to go.
Yeah, I think they're going to try and limit his running during the regular season if they can. Simone obviously broke his collarbone in that right at the end of the second half in that game and didn't play. The first half
pass with a broken collarbone and then came out of the game.
And then came out at the end of the first half, didn't play at all in the second half. And of course, we know about the miracle finish, but it really didn't have much to do with the offense. They just, as you mentioned, they could not move the ball. So I think Coach Freeman will try and limit kind of running the ball, try and throw it as much as he can. Yep. And that'll be a key. They got some new receivers there, so it'll be interesting to see how they all mesh together. But certainly they got a great quarterback to throw it to.
Continuing our trend of guys who have left schools and gone somewhere else in both of our next games, we're talking Pike Road at McGill Tulane. Curtis Perry, you just mentioned him a moment ago, Ben, is down at Pike Road, or over at Pike Road now, you can say, out of the Montgomery area. And I think this is going to be a good game.
Yeah, it should be. 5A Pike Road, 6A McGill Tulane. A lot of talent on both sides. Obviously, for Pike Road, one of the big storylines there is Iverson Hooks, as you see. He was talking about injuries. He was hurt early in his season last year, the 2020 season, missed the rest of the season. I know Coach Patrick Browning's really high on him at quarterback and his versatility. So he's completely healthy. I actually talked to Patrick Browning a little while ago. He told me how that he's healthy and ready to go. Quinshon Junkins is uncommitted. He's number 11 on our A-list, big bruising running back. kind of reminiscent of T.J. Yeldon, former Alabama star, former star at Daphne High School. And then Curtis Perry, who we mentioned, moves over late from Park Crossing, is just a destructive force on the defensive line, and he's going to be hard for anybody to handle. And if you look at McGill, I think one of the more underrated guys in the state, Braylon McReynolds, ran for 1,300 yards and 22 touchdowns last year for the Yellow Jackets. I think people are going to see his name a lot. And Braden Turner is probably their big, D1 commit at this point, going to Northwestern. They always seem to have a great defensive back or kick and or returner on their team.
Who'd you pick in this game?
So I picked McGill Tulane in a close game in this one. By the way, we should mention, Simone, that our pick we're doing. So our staff at AL.com, which includes you this year, we'll pick 20 games across the state, and those will be posted on AL.com on Thursdays. So look for those. They'll be posted Thursday morning. Who did you pick in this game?
I picked McGill, and y'all better watch yourselves. I'm telling you, I'm pretty good at this high school football thing, so just watch out. I'm looking forward to the end of the year to see who's at the top of this leaderboard between the four of us. So
I'm shaking in my tennis shoes.
Another one, okay, and I'm telling you that I had a hard time. This was probably the last pick that I had to make, was the Pinson Valley at Hewitt-Trussville game when it comes to deciding on who I thought was going to win this one. If I remember correctly, I think I have it so close. I have Hewitt-Trussville pulling out a close one. But last year, if I remember right, this game was not as close as I think folks anticipated it was going to be.
No, Hewitt beat them pretty good last year. But Pinson got on a roll and obviously won the state title behind the aforementioned JaQuincy Kool-Aid McKinstry. I saw today, by the way, that he had an NIL deal with Kool-Aid, which is
been waiting for that.
Yeah, I mean, who knew? Why did it take so long?
I don't even know. I mean, paperwork, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, but that should have been done day one.
You're right. Look at our list here. What's interesting is we had, Randy Kennedy, our buddy from Sports Talk 99.5, helped me come up with the A-list this year, and he actually gave his thoughts on each recruit. And we have Zach Pyron probably higher than most recruiting services. We have him all the way at number 3 on our A-list. Really like what he can do at Pinson Valley. He's won 3 straight state titles, 2 at Fife, and then he came, where he didn't throw the ball. They don't throw it but about 40 times a year there at Fife. But he came to Pinson Valley, helped them to the state championship. He's committed to Baylor. Really like him as a quarterback. Then obviously his teammate, you see they're committed to Vanderbilt. And then Hewitt-Trussville also going to be spotlighted several times on our show. We've talked about 2 of these guys already, Justice Finkley, Alabama, Colorado, or Texas at some point for him. Omari Kelly will decide on Thursday. Looks like Auburn may get him. And then Riley Quick, we haven't talked about him in a while, Simone, because he committed to play baseball at Alabama. But he is playing football this year, his senior year on the offensive line. So he's kind of dropped out of all the football prospect list because of his commitment to play baseball. But should be a good one. This may be this is one of the, as far as having recruits on, high-profile recruits on both sides, this is maybe the key game of the week for us.
Yeah, there's no team in the state. This isn't a diss on Hewitt-Trussville. I mean, they play in a very tough region. I think the toughest probably in the state. But every year, Hewitt-Trussville has a list of guys this long that are going to play in a Power 5 conference. I understand Riley Quick's going to play baseball, but he could have played football if he wanted to. And I'm just waiting to see them kind of make that breakthrough. They've been riddled with injuries at times in the past that I think has really hurt them to make a deep playoff run or even be in the playoffs at all. But I'm really waiting to see Trussville make that next step and be a state contender type 7A program.
Yeah, that might happen when Thompson moves up to 8A.
By themselves.
The problem is that Hewitt's been really good. Josh Floyd is a good coach. They always have talent, but because you got to play, you basically got to beat your region twice to get to the championship game. You got Thompson and Hewitt-Trussville and Hoover, all of that factor. Thompson and Hoover have won 5 of the 7A state titles combined. So it's just tough to get there in that region, but they'll have a chance this year, I think.
Who did you pick in this game?
I picked Hewitt in this game.
You did pick Hewitt-Trussville.
But Pinson Valley, they got I understand that they have a good deal of transfers, so that team may look a little bit different. Kool-Aid was so instrumental last year in that team's success. Obviously, he ended up being Mr. Football in the state, and rightfully so. So somebody's going to need to step up and be that playmaker for Sam Shade. But I'm sure you got some guys in mind.
Certainly is. All right, Ben Thomas, appreciate your time. Patrick Greenfield was behind the scenes there. It's week 0 of the high school football season. Things getting rocking and rolling here really tomorrow. Fairhope at